So, Frank, what gives you hope right now, and how do you channel that hope into tangible impact through your events, programs, or platforms?
But I would have to say what inspires me and gives me the most hope is seeing how many Latinas are in college. Young Latinas that are in college. And I just had this conversation yesterday on how we need to galvanize our Latino boys into, mentoring programs, more mentoring programs. But to look overall in the statistics of how many young Latinas are being prepared for jobs is something that inspires me and gives me hope.
Hello, welcome to Champions of Change. Be the change you want to see on Expandi TV. I'm your host, Ed Vargas, an international speaker, co-author, and president of Vargas & Associates, LLC, a strategic planning, leadership, and social impact consulting group in Silicon Valley. I advocate, coach, and mentor for the ethical and humane use of tech for greater positive impacts. I'm a mentor with the Miller Center for Global Impacts at Santa Clara University, where I got my business and law degrees, and I mentor on the Conectado.com metaverse platform. On Champions of Change, I host leaders to share their why and their reasons for what they do to inspire others to stand up and take action. I speak from my expertise, from executive roles in the packaging industry, publisher, editor, and conference director for a startup international B2B publishing group, leading nonprofits, and 20 plus years in telecommunications at AT&T. The last 10 years at AT&T, I directed the metric analytics on the e-commerce platform. I had executive leadership roles in the Hacemos ERG and collaborated with 4 other employee resource groups sharing best practices. For example, I helped start the Hacemos ERG's High Tech Day, STEM workshops for local high school students in the USA, Puerto Rico, and Mexico City. As of 2023, the Hacemos ERG has given over $4.5 million in student scholarships. As president of a new nonprofit, the Vina World Foundation, I created the first Unity, Advocacy, and Impact Summit in Silicon Valley on November 12th during a Native American Heritage Month. And I'm creating the second summit on November 22nd at the Mexican Heritage Plaza in San Jose, California. Our summit mission is to bring together advocates and corporate, employee, and business resource groups with leaders at nonprofits, government agencies, entrepreneurs, and educational institutions that want to collaborate to make greater positive impacts in underserved communities. This Champions of Change session features Frank Carbajal and Antonio Tijerino. Frank Carbajal is a visionary force in Latino leadership. As a founder and president of Es Tiempo LLC, Spanish for its time, Frank has spent over a decade galvanizing Latino leaders across the country. His signature initiative, the Silicon Valley Latino Leadership Summit, convenes top thought leaders to elevate equity, innovation, and intergenerational wisdom. Frank's impact spans business, education, and literature. He co-authored Building the Latino Future, Success Stories for the Next Generation, and El Futuro Latino, published across 14 Latin American countries. His work empowers CEOs, small business owners, and community advocates with tools to lead authentically and effectively. A proud East San Jose native, Frank was inducted into the Eastside Hall of Fame for his lifelong dedication to community uplift. He serves on the Advocacy Committee for the Silicon Valley Education Foundation and has received honors, including Father of the Year Award and Portraits of Success recognition. Frank holds a master's degree in human resource management and is deeply rooted in family and faith. He lives in Santa Clara with his wife Molly and their 3 daughters, who inspire his mission daily. Jose Antonio Tijerino is president
a little more time to Frank.
of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, a national nonprofit focused on education, workforce, societal impact, and leadership through a cultural lens, which he describes as a malleable mission. Under Tijerino, Hispanic Heritage Foundation has been honored by the White House, U.S. Congress, Fortune 500 companies, other nonprofits, and even the government of Mexico. Tijerino is also executive producer of the Hispanic Heritage Awards at the Kennedy Center. This year, it was at a different location. We'll get into that later. That's broadcast on PBS. Prior, he was an executive at Fannie Mae Foundation, Nike, Burson Marsteller, and Cohn & Wolfe. Tijerino was honored with the Otley Award by the government of Mexico, which is the highest honor outside of Mexico. Lifetime Achievement Award by the National PTA, Hispanics in Philanthropy Giver Award, the Vision Award by the Silicon Valley Latino Leadership, MALDEF Human Rights Award, Telemundo's Community Service Award, Civilian Impact Award by the U.S. Army, Brillante Award by NSHMBA, Estrella Award by SHIP.
You don't have to mention all that stuff, man. You don't have to.
Tijerino has served on various boards and advisory committees, including Harvard's Latino Leadership Initiative at the Kennedy School, University System of Maryland Foundation, HHTP, Independent Sector, National Girls Collaborative, and many other awards. As a proud immigrant from Nicaragua, Tijerino was recognized by FWD.US for his work with migrant families on the border through the Humanitarian Respite Center in McAllen, Texas, and on the Mexico side. He also co-founded the American Project, hashtag We Dream America campaign, hashtag Masks for Farm Workers, which provided more than 2 million masks for farm workers during the pandemic. Dream Lead for DACA recipients, and supported Immigration Stages Theater for Change featuring Oyemi. Tijerino co-produced the first Latinx-themed game with Minecraft, featuring as a Minecraft character, produced an anti-hate toolkit with Nickelodeon, co-founded the Code as a Second Language initiative, which has introduced 100,000 youth to coding. He co-founded The Loft, that's Latinos on Fast Track Institute, co-founded the Hispanic Leaders Alliance within the NFL, and an Educators Makers Academy with the Kid Museum to attract minority students into STEM. As host of the Fritangue podcast, Tijerino presents Latino culture, unity, perspective, information, and inspiration, with guests ranging from celebrities to policymakers to opinion leaders. He is designated as an influencer on LinkedIn and was selected as top voices on diversity, equity, and inclusion on the platform. His blogs and media presence has made him a national voice on various issues. Tijerino earned a BS degree from the University of Maryland School of Journalism and honored with a doctorate of humane letters from the Chicago School. He's a Salinas Fellow at the Aspen Institute and lives in Washington, D.C. with his family. I'm so honored to have Frank and Antonio part of our Champions of Change today, and would love to always get together with you and talk about how we can continue to work together. So, Antonio, what drives your passion for cultural identity and social impact?
Every single day that I get a chance to wake up, I'm ready to love or fight. And I look at everyone that's walking by me, and I'm like, you want to love or you want to fight? I mean, that's what I think all of us have in us. I get inspired every single day being here with you, Ed, who I've admired for a very long time, and the work that you've done and the impact that you've had. And I'm on here with Frank, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer in terms of tipazos, one of the best people that I know, inspires me through his humility, as well as his ability to collaborate with anyone in focusing on what we're trying to accomplish as a community, especially in the Bay Area, where if you go into the Bay Area, you better call Frank once you get there, whether it's for food recommendations or where the good record stores are, or for leadership. So I'm inspired every day by the young people that I work with, that I truly believe in. I'm inspired by my mom and dad, who are resting in peace, and everything they stood for. I actually believe that you have to open yourself to be inspired every single moment. That's how you're able to move in the directions that you're supposed to. It's got nothing to do with me. So if I'm in a park and I see someone picking up garbage and putting it in the garbage can, I'm inspired. If I see a mural by Jamie Cambron in Atlanta on a huge building, I'm inspired. When I see my children or Frank's children and what they are accomplishing every day as young people, I'm inspired. So, and also with injustices, with some of the current targeting of our community and other communities, that inspires me in a different way. Nevertheless, it still motivates me. And on a personal side, I'm inspired by and motivated by somebody believing in me and somebody not believing in me. They work just as well.
Totally agree with that. Mr. Carbajal, what inspired you to create your Silicon Valley Latino Leadership Summit, and how has it evolved over the years?
Well, first, I'm honored to be here with you, Ed, and Antonio, who's a dear, dear friend and hermano, both of you all. Both of you are hermanos. And one thing you forgot to ask and mention about Antonio is he's the biggest Beatles fan I know. He's a big, by far.
It's the only thing I'm an actual expert at.
The Beatles, and you both are musicians by background and your passion. And Ed, that question is something that I've had conversations with Antonio about. Is what I call in the Silicon Valley, anything from Los Angeles coming up north to the San Francisco Bay Area is what I see as the infrastructure divide. The Highway 101, which splits anything east of the 101, there seems to be these disparities and inequities. And when we think about what I loved about your introduction to Tony was the 2 million mass during COVID, during the pandemic, of our migrant farm workers. And that's why Tony and I connected right away, is he understands my background as far as my parents. They came to the U.S. at the tail end of the Bracero program, which was essentially an amnesty program, path to citizenship for my parents. And being born in El Centro, California, which is in Imperial Valley, about 30 miles north of Mexicali, the border, I figured that when my parents, and I love what Tony was saying about being inspired by hard work, humble, humility work, that really made me think about things that I grew up around in East San Jose, and many migrant families and the hard work. But those disparities that I had mentioned as far as the inequities in school, everything east of the 101 freeway were barrios, were neighborhoods that we didn't have the same access in terms of education. So we had to find out how we could become these student athletes. And I know you both love sports and grew up, I know Tony grew up playing baseball, and you, Ed, playing football, and I played football, soccer. So I was a student athlete and a track runner, and it was a coach, an educator, that realized my talent, but he also knew about my background. And my background being a kid of migrant parents, I was also a migrant ed student. Tony, you know about the migrant ed education. I was one of the migrant ed student athletes, and education was not only important, but what it left me with was being what we called, the first gen education student in my family. But then it's not that I felt like an imposter once I graduated from college, because what sports does for us guys, it really makes us feel like a part of a team. And
Exactly.
being on a baseball team or a soccer team or a football team, there's that diversity there. That diversity really makes us feel part of something. But I didn't really feel part of something when I was taking these college courses or my first professional job. So what I thought of, what was missing are stories, writing a book. So that really was a dream that became a reality in early 2003. And one of the first people I interviewed was Antonio Tijerino. Antonio, I remember I was inspired to interview him because I watched this it was HBO, right, Tony? It was the HBO series on these celebrity type folks. And Tony knows my wife really well, Molly. And Molly says, Frank, come check this out. You got to interview this guy. And I said, who is it? She says, Antonio. And it was after following like Cheech Marin and all these other folks, right? She's like, that's the guy I like. And I said, what's his story? She's like, well, he talks about how he honored his mom when he graduated from college. So that in itself, with these powerful stories, I was very fortunate, Ed, to be published by Wiley. Wiley's a big publisher. And I say Wiley publishes books for dummies, but this isn't a book for dummies. This is a book for us. Our story.
Tell your story. Tell your story.
So long story short, in 2008, when it was published, you all know in 2009 there was a market crash and, the housing crisis, and Jeff Bezos started swallowing up all the bookstores, right? The Border Books and many of the Barnes & Noble. So I met with an executive mentor. His name's Dick Gonzalez. And Dick says, hey, Frank, you should have a leadership summit, because in 2010, what we know as millennials, they're not going to buy your book, Frank, unless they get inspired to meet people in person. And so the birth of the summit started in 2010, and many of us know all of the folks that have, are in the book. But Tony is an awardee in the early part of the summit, and folks like Antonio Tijerino, Sid Wilson, who we all know, Victor Arias, Aida Alvarez, Henry Cisneros, they believed in the summit because it was something that really is about corazon. And we're about heart and family. And when you put heart, family, and business together, you got a great formula for success.
That's great. And I think I've been, since I attended the first one, I've been to all your summits, Frank. And what I enjoy is the energy in the room. It's the people that when they walk out, they now are networking, they're connecting, and they can still collaborate and partner further.
And I want to share something quickly. And Tony has always been a partner for the summit. So this is just the rough draft that's going into print. And here we go, Hispanic Heritage Foundation. And Tony, I know it's hard to travel, like you said, we travel all the time, but what's most important, as Antonio had mentioned, is familia, and he has beautiful kids. His son calls me Tio because, we listen to the same type of music. And he's in a punk band. And Tony, I appreciate you so much.
Hey, Ed, real quick, what you need to know too is in the middle of planning several times over the years, Frank would take time to go into his old high school, and we worked together with Google, and we taught kids how to computer code. And he would, in the middle of this massive planning, he would take time the day before to make sure that he was doing his part in making sure that there's a pipeline to having more people so that his conference can get bigger every single year, because there'll be more Latinos in Silicon Valley and in the tech industry. So
and I'm right there with both of you. When I was at Pacific Bell SBC AT&T with the Assemblis organization, that's where I helped create the High Tech Day, where we bring in local high school students around the country to AT&T facilities, giving them STEM workshops and scholarship applications. And to me, it's always been an opportunity to give them my college career strategic planning guide. And after giving that presentation and having them write down their vision of where they want to be, set goals, and walk through that process, what I always look forward to, there would be a half a dozen or so students that would come up with their eyes this big, and they'd be asking me more questions because no one has ever encouraged them or even to think about going to college and a career. So to me, we both have that same energy as to how can we pay it forward and help our younger leaders move forward from there. Antonio, another question. What does impatient activism mean to you, and how do you practice it?
Brother, thank you for asking that question. It's not in lieu of being thoughtful and planning things out and being strategic over a long period of time. What I'm saying is that we need more impatience with what we're being activists about. The word act is an activism. I'll give you an example of something you both brought up, which was the Mass for Farm Workers. Monica Ramirez is an embodiment of what I'm talking about when I say impatient activism. And we have the same the same rhythm as leaders. And I have to tell you that when you look at the 2 million masks that were presented to farm workers around the country, I was basically holding her tequila shot while she was doing the work. We saw that they weren't considered, farm workers were not considered essential workers, therefore getting masks at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was terrible because already they were suffering from having pesticides and all these environmental issues based on picking the fruit and the food that we consume, especially during COVID, when we are even more dependent on farm workers and those that deliver the food and pack the food. And so I called Monica, and then we impatiently put something together in the middle of the pandemic with no funding whatsoever, and just being resourceful and clever, and pulled in Nick Gonzalez, the actor, and turned around, and it had this huge campaign that ended up being all over TV and going viral. And that impatience is exactly what I'm talking about. You shouldn't be patient with somebody deporting families and separating them. You shouldn't be patient with the trans community being targeted and villainized. You shouldn't be patient with racial injustice and culminating in 500 years of racial injustice and then taking a step backwards. We shouldn't be impatient with sexism and the victimizing of women, including young women like Frank and I have daughters. We shouldn't be patient with farm workers not being appreciated for being the backbone to everything from nutrition to our workforce to the chain of activities that need to happen in order for businesses to run. So my point is that we need an element of being in the 2-minute drill during the entire
Yes.
game. How many times, if you guys are football fans, how many times do you watch a game and you're like, why didn't they do that before? Where's the sense of urgency? We need more of a sense of urgency. If 78% of all new jobs over the next 5 years will be filled by Latinos, where's the sense of urgency to make sure that they are being prepared to fill nearly 8 out of 10 new jobs over the next 5 years? That's helping America, not just helping the Latino community.
That was a key.
Counted on.
That was a key point that was made at the Velocity conference time and time again. Is that that's the core of our workforce, and we need to elevate them and work with them so that we, as a country, can continue to grow. Otherwise, with baby boomers retiring and the birth rate being low, we're going to be caught in a squeeze with that situation.
Yeah, and
So
we're actually doing this skills building program with AT&T, your old company, all over the country. So that's what impatient activism is. It's having a combination of being strategic and thoughtful, but at the same time a sense of urgency, because we should not be patient with some of the things that are happening today.
And that same line, question to you, Frank. You're famous for es tiempo. What does that mean to you in today's world?
I love the question because Antonio had mentioned his mom and dad, and in 2001, when I mentioned to my dad, God rest his soul, I said, Papá, quiero escribir un libro. I want to write a book. He says, pues mijo, ya es tiempo. And so everything we do is driven within our DNA, by our parents or our grandparents or, even padrinos that really make sure that, as Tony had mentioned, you got to be active. When you feel and sense a person that is sharing the wisdom and being active, it really is a transformative sense of urgency. And so with Es Tiempo today, I know that in today's climate, folks are discouraging bilingualism, biculturalism, but I think it's more important, even more so today, because we're over 20% of the majority. I don't like saying the word minority because I don't see us as, like Antonio, for example, loves baseball, right? And the minor leagues, we're not in the minor leagues. We're in the major leagues as a Latino community. And the major league today is filling those jobs, and especially with AI. I think es tiempo to understand that with AI, we really have to find ways to navigate to get to the jobs and to be the engineers behind, what we call architects of AI. And Antonio, and I would be remiss not to mention one of his best friends is also the co-founder Emmanuel, a brilliant Stanford alum. He and Tony put together leadership on a fast track, and not only leadership on a fast track, but coding. And the coding is so much of an impact. We speak of es tiempo. We have to mention folks like a person by the name of Jonathan Padilla, who went to Harvard.
You're naming all my guys, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout
And
out
I'm gonna let
Emmanuel. He went from a young guy to an OG.
he's an OG. Go ahead. Tell him about tell him about how that came to fruition. Because when you say es tiempo, I think of you and Emmanuel and Jonathan, Antonio.
No, honestly, it's es tiempo. I love that moniker because it really is time. Ahora sí, this is our moment. Every moment is our moment, and despite the issues that we're dealing with, it's also a moment when you can make the greatest impact in these times. So no, I'm just thrilled that we've been able to partner with you all these years, Frank, and es tiempo really does capture impatient activism and everything else that we're doing. I mean, that's how great ideas are born. It's out of filling huecos that we need to fill, and that's half the battle right there. While somebody else is figuring out how to fill a hueco, somebody else is just jumping into it, and that's what we've been able to do. And es tiempo is absolutely correct.
And thank you so much. And Ed, I live literally walking distance to the number one company in the world, NVIDIA. And Sir Huang, the founder, the co-founder, is a person that I admire, but at the same time, his reality of talking about the number one jobs that are going to be filled outside of AI are plumbers and electricians, which is fine. I have nephews, but I don't want my nephews, and I'm being very transparent, I don't want them to retire as a plumber or an electrician only because of the health equity component of it, which is longevity of life. Mm-hmm. The longevity of life are jobs that are going to need to be filled in terms of what Antonio pointed out. Did you say 78%, Antonio? Like
78% of all new jobs will be filled by Latino or the left.
New jobs that are outside of hard skilled jobs, which is being a plumber and an electrician. Those are very hard jobs, and I want to find ways through the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and many other organizations to fill these jobs. And how we do that is really going to be a challenging time ahead because of HSIs. So we have to find and collaborate with folks like Antonio and other foundations that are doing it, that understand that the formation is something that is sustainable, because the success rates, I don't know, Ed, have you ever been to a Hispanic Heritage Youth Awards? Not the awards where the gala takes place, but Antonio is, I could say, because I've known Tony for a long time, that he's most proud of the Hispanic Youth Awards, because you see these very talented folks. And I just gave you an example of these brilliant people like Jonathan and Rosalia Zarate, who went to Stanford, a PhD from Stanford, master's in statistics. These are brainiac, awardees. And so those are the folks that are today. And I know Antonio doesn't like to say the future is tomorrow, it's today.
Yeah,
and
right.
We have
And Frank Sara y Espinoza Salamanca. I met her and got her story about Dreamers Roadmap and having that vision to provide resources to students that were DACA students. And she went on, she reached out to me, I did a letter recommendation. She With her amazing grades, she got into Santa Clara University. She graduated from Santa Clara. I was at her graduation ceremony. She also got the Francisco Jimenez Award for her accomplishments there. She was accepted at Stanford and just completed her master's there at Stanford. So to me, having that connection, she also calls me Tio Ed. So it's about familia. It's about how can we see these young people and give them some tools, some direction, and then let them do what they have in their heart, their passion. And she's an amazing young lady. We were both there in front of the city of Half Moon Bay, supporting having the city demolish a dormant house and now putting up a 5-story, 40-unit facility for affordable housing for farm workers there, using tax credits and CERNA funds that a farm worker only makes $25K a year, and the rent in Silicon Valley is so high. This facility at 555 Kelly will allow them to pay what they can afford at that salary. But it's not going to solve the problem of affordable housing, but it's a model that can be replicated. So that's a lot of what my focus is as to how do we bring people together and share this information. Antonio, what have you learned from working with DACA recipients and unaccompanied minors that you can share with our audience today?
Well, let me just comment on Sarahi. We've all known her since she was young and have seen her trajectory, and I think there's a lot we can learn from her.
Yes.
Not necessarily the other way around. And also going back to the workforce part of it, there is no area that we're not impacting. So I want to be able to say the service industry, the plumbers, the carpenters, those working in hotels, the farm workers, that is critical work that we provide. And it is not in lieu of being a Richie Serna that is in San Francisco that created his own company, or an Emmanuel or Jonathan and all these others that are entrepreneurial in the tech space, in the fintech space. It's important that we are fulfilling all the different jobs that America needs for us to fulfill. That broad scope is what's going to get us to that 78% that we need to fill. But like Frank said, we also need to make sure that we're on the innovation side of things as well, in order to take away some of the racial biases in technology and other things. If you're creating it, you're going to be more sensitive to it, and that's why you want the diversity of women and the different groups being represented in creating.
Yes.
In terms of the influence of young people in general, if you look at where our impact can be made, it is through youth. The median age for Latinos is about 30, and it's about 40 for everyone else. About 1/3 of our entire community is under 18 years of age. And then when you're looking at the actually most populated age, which is a statistic that I don't always hear, but it's my favorite one, non-Latinos is around 56. For Latinos, it's 14, the age that's most populated. So there is no doubt where you're heading. And in terms of getting guidance, no offense to us, but I'd rather get advice from a 16-year-old than a 60-year-old. And it's part of what we try to do at Hispanic Heritage Foundation. And so when we're talking about working with the undocumented community and the migrant community, the resilience, the creativity out of necessity, the role of faith, the role of hope is magnified. And when I get the privilege of working with Frank or Sister Norma Pimentel on the border, who is an absolute angel on earth, you get inspired by the belief system in these communities. And a lot of times that gets dropped off when we cite our $4 trillion in economic impact. We cannot forget the impact of the young undocumented community and also their parents, which play a critical role in the Latino population and in the population of the United States. But there is no inspiration like someone that's had to overcome the hardship and looking forward has to create their own vision to look forward, because it looks very murky if you're undocumented. And let's not forget, when we talk about DACA recipients, let's not forget those that don't qualify for DACA, that are just
Yes.
as talented and just as important to our community. So I try to be inclusive of our entire youth community, including those that are undocumented, including DACA recipients, including those that are still traveling from other countries to make this country even greater, with their influence. And if you think about it, when we're looking back at 250 years, which we'll be celebrating next year, we were here before that clock started rolling, in 1776. And our influence has continued. And if you look at the role of immigrants in this country, whether it was the Asian Pacific Islander community, our Latino community, communities from Africa, from Europe, and everywhere else, that's what the 250 years is really buoyed by. It's been completely energized by. And the next 250 years will be written largely by the Latino community.
Let me ask a question for both of you to respond to. So, Frank, what gives you hope right now, and how do you channel that hope into tangible impact through your events, programs, or platforms?
You know, I, as a father of three daughters, I have my youngest in college and my oldest in college, and my special angel Mila, my middle daughter, who inspires me more than ever. But I would have to say what it inspires me and gives me the most hope is seeing how many Latinas are in college, young Latinas that are in college. And I just had this conversation yesterday on how we need to galvanize our Latino boys into, mentoring programs, more mentoring programs. Hispanic Heritage Foundation has done a tremendous job in the past decades in terms of making sure that there's a even level playing field for both Latino and Latinas. But to look overall in the statistics of how many young Latinas are being prepared for jobs is something that inspires me and gives me hope. What also gives me hope is just going out into the community, and I believe it's important not to have the fear and fear mongering of folks outside of our community, and continue to feel comfortable speaking Spanish. I know I love visiting East San Jose, and East San Jose is a place of home. And when I hear community members speaking Spanish, it makes me feel good about myself. It provides hope. It provides the hope that, Tony's a big basketball fan as well, but one of and he loves Steph Curry, right, Tony? You think Steph Curry is a great person, but at the same time, there is this mantra that the Warriors used over 10 years ago: strength in numbers. And I like saying strength in numbers, and that provides hope in our community. We have the numbers, but we just have to bring the strength together. And what brings strength to numbers is organizations like Hispanic Heritage Foundation, like Latino Corporate Directors Association, so many, like Sid Wilson's, I said, and so many others, that if we come together, galvanize. And Antonio mentioned Monica Ramirez. She is a force. And the force that she brings is not forgetting about our most essential folks, are folks like my parents who came to this country as migrant workers. And I think that together we are numbers, but in strength, we really have to collaborate and partner with everyone in terms of inclusion and unity. And it's going to take every voice to make that happen.
And Tony, again, thank you again for the Hispanic Heritage Awards that were just shown on PBS. That was amazing, very inspiring.
Amazing.
So let me also ask you the same question. What gives you hope right now, and how do you channel that hope into tangible impact through your events, programs, or platforms?
Our currency right now is hope, Ed. And we have to in every way project hope and not feeling helpless. I don't care if it's smiling at somebody when you're on the bus. I don't care if it's picking up garbage when you walk by it on the street. I don't care if it's teaching literacy in your community or volunteering. This is the time to not feel helpless, and anything you can do to not feel that way is really important. Part of that is narrative change. So get on social media and project those positive stories. Make sure that you are letting people know what our community is and stands for, and also to work with other communities. This is not the time to be divided.
Exactly.
And also, our community is every other community. 20% of our community is of African descent. It's important to acknowledge the racism within our community.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize
Amen.
the
Amen to
homophobia
that.
within our community, the sexism, the
right.
anti-Semitism, the Islamophobia, the ableism within our own community, and then to work with other communities to move forward. This is going to be a concerted effort, and by concerted, I mean in concert with everyone. And that gives you hope. I also am a huge believer in youth leading right now, as Frank said, that when you're talking about a 15-year-old that has access to Wi-Fi and any kind of a device can reach more people than Gandhi, Martin Luther King, or Cesar Chavez could in their iconic lifetimes combined in a split second.
Yes.
That gives me hope.
So to that point,
Powerful.
the last question, I know we're running close to time here for Frank, but if you could issue one call to action to Hispanic youth and our emerging leaders watching this interview, what would it be and why now? Frank, you want to take that one first?
I'll let Tony take it first since,
Okay.
yeah.
Take chances, be creative, be bold, believe in yourself, and others will believe in you in response to it. As I mentioned a second ago, you have access to technology which makes you the most powerful generation in history. This is your moment. Make really good use for it. And the viejos like us need to believe in them and turn them loose, as you said, Frank. It's at this point, we're the pitching coaches. They're the left-hander with 101 mile an hour fastball. But they still need our coaching. But
Yeah.
let's not forget what the talent is. Our relevance is through our youth. Don't get it mistaken. That is where our effort should be placed. And part of it is just plain and simple believing in someone, like you did with Sarai and like we all have, or with others that we've encountered. They're going to be okay. They're brilliant young minds. They're going to make an impact. But to have someone believe in them, connect them, and elevate them is critical. So they just need to be able to take action right now, just any kind of action, and then figure out where they go from there, from that first step of action.
Yeah, so I wanted Tony to go because I feel that one of the things that the Hispanic Heritage Foundation is doing as far as action is they're not only providing the coaching, but the tools that are necessary for the technology to intersect with talent. And with that, you know, Tony has been out here, Antonio has been out here to the Silicon Valley numerous times. And a couple of years ago, I met him at Adobe, and what we see in terms of the innovation, that was so much fun, Antonio. The innovation is driven by, you know, the talent. And in terms of the numbers, we have the talent. We have to do more of what the Hispanic Heritage Foundation is doing. And what I mean by that are we have many organizations throughout the United States. And in terms of collaboration, we have to look at the hub, which is here in the Silicon Valley. And when we look at this hub, we have to really remind ourselves that there are so many talented Latinas, Latinos that are taking action, but we have to provide the coaching. And the coaching takes action on our part. And it not only takes action on our part, but accountability. And accountability is really the purpose of why the Silicon Valley is ready. The Silicon Valley is ready for our talented youth. that are just graduating from prestigious colleges. When we talk about, Antonio, the colleges that have graduated from the programs through the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, we're talking about the Stanfords, we're talking about the Harvards, we're talking about the Yales, the Princetons. University of Texas always gets a shout out because, you know, it's a
Hey,
huge.
man, wait a second though. All schools get a shout out, including the University of Maryland, Santa Clara,
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's
everywhere
Santa Clara
else.
University.
I'm San Jose State.
San Jose State.
It's what you make of it where you are.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
and I just appreciate Frank because he's doing exactly what we need to do, is bringing our community together, and he's doing that not just in Silicon Valley, but all over the country. And I just couldn't be more proud to be here with
Yeah.
Frank on this.
And thank you, Antonio, for mentioning that, because you're absolutely right. One of the things that we all love is sports. Well, here on this call, but we can't ignore the Division II schools as well. Division I, Division II, it's all the talent. The talent that the youth is driving is incredible, but meeting the opportunity is making the connection to the right folks in the Silicon Valley and beyond. And it's our responsibility, and we're accountable for doing that, and we're excited about it, right?
If I could just weigh in real quick, Ed, because
Sure.
I want to give flowers to my man Frank. Social capital is something that's missing in our communities that you don't get to till you're farther along, where then you get a Frank that meets an Antonio that meets an Ed. To be able to cultivate that, foment that when they are young, and bringing them together with the social capital part is something that Frank is doing, except it's intergenerational. If you look at who he brings together for his conference, it is every age group, it is every section of our community, and that is building social capital. So a Tichapa now has an opportunity to connect with a Rosalia and a Julian and everyone else, and an Ed. And that's something that Frank does. Social capital is extremely important in our community. We don't necessarily have the birthright of having a deal that works for Goldman and is going to give us great advice on the golf course in terms of what our career path should be. We have to depend on Tio Frank, and he always comes through.
Well,
And
thank
to
you.
that point, one of the things that I'll be doing Saturday, I've been a mentor with the Conectado.com platform for the last 3 years. I'll be speaking to all the mentees at one time with a message on Saturday morning. And if you noticed from the Velocity conference last week, Frank, that we were both at together, Conectado was there talking about their AI Opportunity Backpack that just launched this Wednesday. So what that is they've scraped websites so that you can create your own resource, a backpack of career opportunities, scholarships, and tailor it to what it is that's meaningful to you. So that just is launching now. That's a partnership with Madeline Wallace with her AI-assisted process. And to me, that's what we need to put in the hands of our young leaders, is how they can use AI in an ethical and humane way for positive impact across all communities. So I'm a supporter of using AI in a positive way. And who's running the algorithms? You know, what's going into that information to be sure it's not misdirecting or giving misinformation. So with my legal background, that's a higher value or a priority in that process. But I certainly want to thank both of you gentlemen. It's amazing for me just to talk to you. And with this Champions of Change program, I think all what you've shared, who you are, what you represent, and what you see for the future, I want to share that with as many people as possible. So thank you for being here with me.
It's a privilege,
Thank
Ed.
you, Ed.
Thank you for having us, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Okay,
you.
well, take care.